At ACO, we do everything we can to provide you with right way, and ACOLIF hoists that will help you work like a pro. And that means working efficiently and safely. But no matter how safe we make our hoists, safety ultimately depends on you, the operator. With this in mind, we're going to review the 10 commandments of safe hoist operation. The things you should do and the things you shouldn't do to maintain safe working conditions for yourself and for your coworkers. The first rule, like the other 9, is quite simple and basic. Know your hoist and choose the right hoist for the job. Know and respect its rated capacity. You don't have to be an engineer to operate a hoist, but you should at least know the fundamentals of how it works and what can cause failure or unsafe operation. If it's a chain hoist, the load chain passes over a load wheel, which is sometimes called a lift wheel. It's built with deep pockets, and each link of the load chain fits precisely into one pocket as the chain passes over the wheel. A steel guide minimizes chain jams between the load wheel and the housing. Chain that is worn or damaged, or chain that is twisted or kinked, can damage the chain guide and the pockets. In turn, worn or damaged pockets and guides can damage the chain to the point that the hoist is unsafe to operate. This is a new chain guide from a Rightway 1-ton hoist. And here's one that's badly worn and damaged. A good example of what can happen if a hoist is used improperly. In a wire rope hoist, each wrap of the rope must be seated snugly in one groove of the drum. If the cable is permitted to overwrap on itself, it can become crushed or frayed and unsafe. Okay, you've got the right hoist for the job, but are you sure it's safe to use? A quick visual inspection at the beginning of your shift will identify any obvious problems. Inspect upper and lower hooks for cracks, gouges, signs of stress. The hook should not be twisted, nor should the throat opening be expanded significantly. Make sure the latch is functioning properly. And if you have any doubts or questions, check with your supervisor. Inspect the load chain or the wire rope for wear or for damage. If it's a chain, be sure it's not gouged and that it's free of foreign materials and that it's properly lubricated. Unlubricated chain is one of the greatest causes of premature chain wear. Check to see if it's been twisted or kinked. If it has, untwist it. If you have a wire rope hoist, be sure the wire rope is not frayed, crushed, or kinked, and also be sure it's not overwrapped on the drum. Be sure the trolley rides smoothly and securely on the beam. If you're using an electrically powered hoist, check without a load to see that the upper and lower limit switches are functioning properly. With three-phase electrical power, a condition known as reverse phasing is possible. This means that when you push the up button, the hook comes down, and vice versa. Always push the up button first to check phasing, and don't use a hoist that's out of phase because the upper and lower limit switches won't work. Tying a knot in the PB cord may be a quick way to shorten it, but it's also a quick way to shorten its life while putting you at risk. The knotting can crack the insulation, leading to a short or broken circuit. Finally, with a light load, check to make sure the hoist brakes are functioning properly. If the load drifts, don't use the hoist. Your health, perhaps your life, and the lives of your coworkers can be endangered when safe operating procedures are ignored. Be responsible. Work smart. If a hoist doesn't function properly, or if your inspection indicates excessive wear or damage, don't use it. Report the condition to your supervisor. Rigging a load, preparing it for travel, offers the potential for a lot of dangerous practices. The first caution is to be sure that the upper suspension will support the load. Never attach the upper hook to water pipes, airlines, or electrical conduits. Never tip load a hook, upper or lower. The load should be seated solidly in the saddle or bowl of the hook, not out here on the tip. Now this is a new hook. And here's one I got from the scrap bin. Now this is dangerous because it's been twisted, it has a drastically open throat, and a worthless latch, all a result of overloading and side pulling. Never use the load chain as a sling. It eliminates the swivel effect of the lower block, and it can cause damage where the hook engages the chain. Use an approved sling with the load properly balanced so it won't slip or slide when lifted. Remember, a hoist is designed to lift a load, not to pull it. Keep the hoist and the hook in a straight vertical line. If you lift your load at an angle, a number of bad things can happen. One, you can introduce the danger of an uncontrolled lateral movement, which obviously could be much more serious than some spilled coffee. An off-center lift can also damage the hoist housing, the chain guide and load wheel, and the load chain or wire rope. Another dangerous practice is bending the load chain or wire rope over objects with sharp edges. Don't do it. And don't try to lengthen or repair a load chain. This is very special ACO chain, electric welded heat-treated alloy steel, manufactured specifically for each right or right-way hoist. Each link is designed to fit the exact size and pitch of the pocket wheel. The rated capacity of a hoist is not something that was arrived at accidentally. Each hoist is carefully designed, engineered, and manufactured to meet specific requirements, and the weight limit is prominently displayed on the housing of every hoist. Read it and believe it. Not all hoists have built-in load-limiting devices. Don't take chances. Read and follow the operating procedures and cautions recommended in the instruction manual for your hoist. If you're using a lever hoist or puller, it was designed to pull its capacity with reasonable one-hand effort. If you have to hang on the handle, you're overloaded. And never, never use a length of pipe as a cheater. Cheaters are losers. With hand chain hoists, the same general precautions apply. If you can't lift the load yourself, it's too heavy. Never get another person to help you lift your load, and never help another person to lift his load. You won't be doing each other any favors. Sometimes a load weighing less than the rated capacity can be an overload. These are called shock loads. A shock load occurs when the load chain or wire rope is subjected to the entire weight of the load suddenly, as when a load is dropped or jerked. The problem happens most often when the lifting operation is started with a slack chain or cable. Snagging a load during a lift can also result in a shock overload. If you're working with a chain hoist, you want to be careful not to twist or kink the load chain. When twisted links reach the hoist housing, they can damage the chain guide and the load wheel pockets. Sometimes you'll find the chain twisted where the dead end is fastened to the hoist housing. With double chain hoists, a capsized hook block is a common cause of twisting. And as mentioned earlier, using the load chain as a sling can lead to multiple problems, one of which is a twisted chain. You don't know what another operator on another shift might have done to the hoist you're using, but your daily inspection should eliminate any potential dangers initiated by others. The hook block should always be stopped before it touches the floor or ground surface. If you get careless about this, a number of problems can develop. Once again, a capsized lower block can result in twisted chain, and a slack load chain or wire rope can cause shock overloading. A slack wire rope can also cause spooling or overwrapping to occur. This overwrapping on the drum can damage the wire rope. You just can't afford to be careless or sloppy in your work habits. There's too much at stake. That's why the 8th commandment is, don't let yourself be distracted, especially while you have a load in the air, and never cause another operator to lose concentration. When transporting a load, make sure you have a clear path and safe footing. Look where you're going at all times. So if you're using a plain trolley, this means you push your load. You don't walk backwards, pulling it after you. Don't let your hoist collide with other hoists or objects. And before you lift a load, you should have prepared a place to put it down. Often, this means lowering the load onto timber battens, which makes it easy to remove the sling. The load should never be landed directly onto the chain. Never leave your load suspended in the air unattended. If you must interrupt your lift, lower the load and make sure it's secure before leaving. Really, every shop, every yard, warehouse, or construction area, every job site has its own special hazards. But hoists are often used in welding areas, and these can be very, very dangerous areas. Do not use the chain or wire rope as a ground when welding, and never let either be touched by a live welding electrode. It's a good practice to use an insulated sling in a welding area. Be careful not to let your load chain, wire rope, or hook be heated by a welding torch. This can damage or weaken them. And keep weld spatter off the load chain or wire rope. Spattered links will no longer conform precisely with the chain guide or load wheel pockets, a potential problem that we've mentioned a number of times. That body of yours is the only one you're going to get. And with all the unexpected things in this life waiting to get you, you don't need to increase the odds against yourself. You don't need to make your job more dangerous than it should be. For example, I won't stand under that load, not even for this demonstration. If I were to put myself in that position, well, it wouldn't be just unsafe. That'd be dumb. For your own sake, be a sensible, responsible worker. Be a pro. And for the sake of the guys you work with, never transport your load over their heads. Warn them and give them time to get out of the way. Never move yourself or anyone else up, down, or around with a hoist. It's a tool, not a toy. In fact, each Right-Way, and ACOLIFT hoist is a very durable, dependable tool, one that helps you to do your job efficiently and safely. But remember, safety depends not just on the tools used or the facility in which they're used. Ultimately, safety depends upon the combined actions of each and every person in that facility. Safety is your responsibility.